Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to this weekly talk and meditation that I'm going to be doing. So, over the next 6 weeks, what I'm hoping to do is offer an introduction to folks who may be new to meditation, to mindfulness practice, and also maybe a slightly different perspective for those who are already practicing. And I'm going to be using the 4 foundations of mindfulness. So this is mindfulness of the body, of feelings, of the mind, and of mental states. And this is classic teachings that are extremely beneficial. When I look back at the life I've lived, I've done a lot of wonderful things that I love, from making music to traveling in a band to, having great friendships and relationships. And in terms of things that I've learned to practice, I'm about 5 years into a fairly committed meditation practice. It's the most beneficial thing that I've learned to do, for mental health, for the quality of my overall life, for my physical health. It really has. It's one of the few things that I've picked up that has really just been for my benefit in the long term. And there's plenty of, research studies out there to back this up too. And so my hope is to just sit down once a week and offer some things that have been helpful for me. And just to be clear too, I'm very inspired by the lineage of early Buddhism. And this is what I have studied and practiced under teachers who teach this. So I also want to make that clear that these are not, my specific, unique teachings. I'm just trying to convey to the best that I can what I've learned. So what I want to do in this first video is just talk about a style of meditation that I'll be sharing over the next 6 weeks. And this is the union of 2 things, both concentration and mindfulness. And sometimes these are suggested as different practices, as in maybe you're doing just a concentration practice, or some people are just doing a mindfulness practice. But many teachers that I've found actually fold these into one fluid practice, and that's been really helpful for me over the years. Sometimes maybe leaning one more towards one or the other, but in general, not keeping them as separate practices. So concentration is a form of, anchoring the mind, stabilizing the mind on an object, on the breath or something like that. And mindfulness is often said to be this non-judgmental, present moment awareness. So it's this open, receptive quality of mind, which can actually just receive, almost like awareness itself. So just sitting here right now and noticing that awareness is already happening. If you're listening to me right now, that's awareness of sound, listening to the voice. There's also can be awareness of the body, sensing the contact with the floor or the cushion beneath you. If your eyes are open still, there's also awareness of your visual field, allowing that to come in. So we're completely porous, as human beings, we're constantly absorbing, being impacted and impacting others. Sometimes in my personal experience, it can feel like I am, zipped up in this body and, completely in my own head. But returning to this awareness is kind of a reminder to me to open, to be receptive, to allow, and also to notice. So mindfulness has this open and receptive, but also alert component. So noticing what's happening. So just taking a moment to, if it feels comfortable, to sit up in wherever you're sitting right now. And we're just going to start by just softening. So relaxing, starting at the top of the head, relaxing the muscles at the top of the head. If it feels comfortable, you can close your eyes. If not, you can just gaze softly at the floor. And beginning to soften the muscles of the face. Sometimes these are very active in our daily life. Just noticing and relaxing the muscles of the face. Just allowing the breath to be natural. Your breath is happening. And on each out-breath, softening down through the head into the shoulders. Relaxing the right shoulder. Allowing the out-breath to help soften the muscles of the upper back. Down through the torso. Softening the chest. Allowing the arms and hands to fall naturally. And just letting the weight of gravity rest them wherever they are right now. And beginning to notice the seat, where the sit bones are connecting to the ground or to the chair, and the legs, softening into the legs, allowing each out-breath to relax, and just noticing the qualities of sensation that are present in the body right now. This is all mindfulness is. Simple, direct, and alert. Just receiving. And now beginning to allow the mind, the awareness, to settle on sensations of the body breathing. So this can be kind of a global sense of just the body rising and falling with each in-breath and out-breath. Not trying to do anything special, but just be present for that stabilizing rhythm of the body breathing itself. Sensing the body from the body. This is awareness immersed in the body. The human nervous system travels through the entire body. So the mind is actually not just in our head, but it also permeates the entire body. And the mind is also receiving. So just noticing any sounds that might be happening in the background. Just noticing that and staying with the sensations of the body breathing. And the mind will think, and it's not a problem. Just notice the mind thinking, and just allowing it to pass right through, and staying with this body breathing right now. There's nothing else to do for the next few minutes, but to just allow yourself to be here. The practice of meditation is like a gift. It allows the mind, the heart, and the body to be itself. Releasing from the grip of ideas and conceptions of who we need to be or maybe should be. Just allowing for this process of the unification of the mind and the body. And taking a moment to just notice the spaces between the thoughts. Is if the mind is thinking, is it continuous? Or are there gaps? And noticing if there's any release at the end of each out-breath. Maybe even a brief pause before the inhale begins. And every time there's a return to the breath, it could be an opening and a softening in that process. Not forcing the mind back to the breath, but noticing the mind is thinking about something else. And that noticing there's a softening, opening back into the body breathing. In this last minute or two, just noticing if there's any small bit of freedom that you've experienced. Maybe a sense of ease, or a bit more equanimity, or a bit more of an open heart, perhaps. And just taking a moment to share that with all beings. Just quietly, silently, offering any goodness that's come from this practice to be for the benefit of all beings everywhere. So thank you for sitting, taking the time. So why meditate? Why sit down and do this? Some people sit down and do this every day. Monks dedicate, a lifetime to it. I mentioned this word freedom a little bit earlier in the meditation. Noticing any little bit of freedom. This is an onward leading practice towards a greater sense of ease, freedom, and ultimately a freedom that can be of benefit to not just ourselves, but to everyone. And so these two practices that I was trying to offer in this meditation, it's often called concentration, sometimes unification of mind, allows the mind to begin to settle into the body, to find stability, to be a little bit less scattered and have a little bit of composure. And this helps to support the mindfulness. It's difficult to be aware of what's happening when the mind is jumping from one thing to the next thing. So concentration has this ability of stabilizing the mind, and also grounding the mind in something in the body. When there's an object like breath is used, it allows the mind to begin to stabilize into the body. And over time, what can happen through concentration is that it becomes more and more of a natural process. The body can begin to actually light up from this over time. It begins to become, there's more of a sense of embodied awareness, almost like gradually the nervous system in the body begins to come to life. And in that, this process of returning to just being aware, centered in the body, becomes more and more natural. So concentration, unification of mind has this kind of stabilizing effect. And now mindfulness has the ability to notice what is happening, to bear things in mind, right? Has the quality of saying, oh, there's thinking happening right there. Oh, there's a little tension in the body. Maybe there's some fear, maybe there's an emotion. Just noticing and bearing with it, not pushing it away, not holding on to anything, but just noticing. And over time, what mindfulness can do is begin to notice when the mind is holding on, when the mind is pushing away, and to allow objects to come and go freely in awareness. And this isn't easy, but more and more over time, it can become natural. So there's something in Buddhism called the Four Noble Truths, which I just want to talk about briefly here before starting on this series of 6 videos, because it kind of gives the overall framework of Buddhist meditation and practice. So the first is that it's the acknowledgement that there is an unsatisfactoriness in life, or that there's suffering in life. It's just that very simple acknowledgement that at times, for everyone, there is something that can be unsatisfactory. And this is from as small as, me trying to set up these lights before starting this video and not being able to put them together, and noticing that in that, as soon as the frustration is coming in, there's some level and degree of dissatisfaction in that experience. I'm not getting what I want in the most basic way, right? I'm trying to get this very simple thing done, and it's just not happening. And then it can be also to some of the larger things in life, losing someone, anything that involves the greater pains in life, the ending of a relationship, right? These things that are ultimately very painful. And so, luckily, it doesn't stop at the first noble truth. The second noble truth acknowledges that the root of suffering is clinging or craving. So this is a little bit of what I was mentioning earlier. Wanting things to be a certain way, not wanting things to be a certain way, right? So in that moment where I was trying to set up the lights, I can't get it quite right, can't get it in there. And in that moment, I'm not getting what I want, and there's frustration. There's frustration, and it's becoming more difficult for me to insert this rod into the light shade. And so in that process, this is a moment of suffering, clinging. And this can be both a mental and a physical component. The body can tense up, and the mind can also tense up. And so the third noble truth is the acknowledgement that there's a release from suffering. There's a cessation. And this comes through releasing the mechanism of clinging, of attachment, of aversion, So in every moment that there's a release from wanting things to be a certain way, a release from not wanting to have this emotion or whatever it is at the moment. For example, as I'm setting up this light and I'm noticing I'm getting more and more frustrated, it's becoming more difficult. So it's possible for me in that moment to just stop for a second, take a breath, come back to what I'm doing, and suddenly it's a lot more clear. Oh, I just need to fold it this way, here, and it's done. So that's like a very small, very mundane example of the mind being released from this unnecessary suffering of life. And this can also be true, even in the depths of healing grief, right? Grief needs to be felt. The pain of losing a loved one, something like that. It doesn't come through pushing away those feelings. It doesn't come through ignoring the feelings. It comes through turning towards them. This is where mindfulness can be really key. It can allow the emotions to come. It can allow whatever is there in the present moment to be there without gripping or pushing anything away. And in that process, things can begin to move through the system, and there can be more and more freedom. Every time the mind is released from that clinging and aversion, it's not always pleasant necessarily, but it leads to fluidity in mind and in body. And so this fourth noble truth is what's called the Eightfold Path. And that's something I'm hoping to get into more in future videos. But it involves wisdom, seeing clearly the nature of suffering, what leads to suffering, what leads away from suffering. An ethical life. So basically non-harm, living a life which is not causing harm to ourselves and to others. And also to concentration or meditative cultivation, both mindfulness, concentration, these things that we were just practicing are involved with there, and having a balanced effort in the practice. And so this is one of the most beautiful, complete, and I think brilliant teachings that a human being has ever made. So this was the Buddha's teaching over 2,500 years ago, and was modeled after the prescriptive nature of a doctor. What is the problem? What is the diagnosis? What is the cure for what's happening? So this was the Buddha's gift to anyone, and it's offered to come and see for yourself. See if it's helpful, see if it's beneficial. And it takes time and it takes practice. But in the long run, what I found is that, like I was saying earlier, that meditation has been one of the most fruitful and beneficial things that I've taken up in my life. So I offer this to you, and if it was helpful, please come back next week, and we'll begin with the first foundation of mindfulness of the body. Thanks very much.